Hi, I'm Joey Lott, and in this video I'm going to speak about boredom. The reason I'm going to speak about boredom is because a viewer requested that I do a video on this subject. If ever you would like me to do a video on a particular topic, or if you have a question that you'd like me to respond to in a video, just let me know and I'd be happy to do that. The best way to contact me is by email. My email address is joeylott@gmail.com. That's JOEYLOTT@gmail.com. And like I say, email is the best way to contact me. In this particular case, the viewer left a comment on YouTube. Most of the time, I don't see the comments on YouTube, so it's best just to send me an email. So now, on this subject of boredom, what do I have to say? So specifically, the viewer requested that I do a video about existential boredom. And what I can tell you from my own experience, and of course you'll have to take a look for yourself to see if this is true in your experience, but in my experience, the distinction between existential boredom and non-existential boredom is really a false distinction. I don't really find that there is any such distinction. So what I can suggest is, as always, you have to look to your own experience. This is what I find when I look at boredom. What I find is that boredom is it is a strategy, or it is a feeling state that is a product of trying to avoid what's happening. So there's a rejection of what's happening. This is often unconscious. I was driven by boredom. I was compelled by boredom for many years, to the point where I would I would do all kinds of things. I had all kinds of strategies: meditation, working, prayer, all kinds of things that I would do trying to avoid my experience, trying to avoid the unwanted feelings and emotions. And when those wouldn't work, then I felt bored. And this boredom was so extreme, I would experience what we call going stir crazy. And I would feel compelled to just get out of the apartment, go for a walk, go do something. And so this boredom, in my experience, is, as I say, it is a state that is created by this compulsion to avoid what's happening. And for all those years, I was completely unaware of this. And that's why when the compulsion was there, I felt that I had no choice. I must do something. Absolutely felt that I must do something to appease this boredom, to do something to get rid of the boredom. And when I started to take a look, what I realized was that the boredom itself was a facade of sorts. And underneath that was all of the unwanted emotions that I had been trying to get rid of. And the way I speak of it, there are four basic emotions. This is just based on the simplest version of what emotion researchers have to say, jives with my own experience. You may feel differently, and that's fine. We don't. It's not a particularly important point, but just for convenience, and for some clarity, I'll say that the emotions that I am speaking of are happiness, fear, anger, and sadness. And so in my conditioning, in particular, anger and fear were absolutely unacceptable. They were so unacceptable that I was completely unaware that that these states like boredom were a facade, and that they were a based on this compulsion to avoid those emotions, because it was just so fundamental. I didn't. It just I just didn't even question it. That these emotions must be avoided. I had to get rid of them. Could not allow them. And and of course there are certain sensations that can go along with that, and those can become triggers and creates this vicious cycle. The more, this is my experience, is that the more I tried to avoid it, the worse things got. And by worse, what I mean is that those triggers became, the associations became greater, broader, more generalized. So pretty soon I felt that everything, I had to avoid everything. So in my view, boredom, anxiety, depression, they, to be clear, there may be other, let's say, biological bases for some of these states at times, but oftentimes the distinction between these is not all that useful, because usually, often, what is happening is just that they're all a facade. It's a cover for the avoidance, or the attempt to avoid these emotions that are underneath. It's my experience. Take a look, see if it's true. So if you're feeling bored, whether it's existential boredom or any kind of boredom, I would say if it seems like it's not if the boredom's not so terrible, it's just kind of mild boredom, then it might be easier in those cases to take a look. But whatever the case, whenever possible, I would say just take a look and see when you're experiencing boredom of whatever nature. See what is it that's really compelling the um, the activity that seems to be compelled, right? I mean, it seems as though if you're bored, you have to do something. If you're bored, then you feel compelled to seek for some kind of resolution to that boredom, something that will appease the boredom. That's boredom, right? So if we feel what we call bored, then we are seeking for something that will help with that. And we all have strategies. So when that happens, just take a look and see what is the nature of this compulsion. And what I've found is that the nature of the compulsion, and if you've watched any of these videos, then this will not be a big surprise to you, but I find the nature of the compulsion is fundamentally tension. It's a contraction. You can use other terms. I often use other terms. We call it guarding, armoring. And there's nothing wrong with that mechanism. It's a self-protective mechanism. It's very useful in the right context. But the question to take a look at is there actually any real danger in this moment of boredom? There isn't. And so then take a look at this compulsion, the nature of the compulsion itself, and if it's possible to relax that compulsion. And it's not to make the compulsion bad. It's not to become perfectly relaxed or to get rid of it. It's just an exploration to see what is really happening. Because the compulsion has with it the sense of urgency. So when we're bored, we feel urgently that we must do something to appease the boredom. It's not something where we feel, you know, maybe tomorrow I should do something to appease the boredom. It's not maybe next year I should do something to appease the boredom. It's I must find something to appease this boredom now. So that urgency is very curious, because there is no real danger right now, nothing that necessitates an urgent response. In fact, when you're feeling bored, there really isn't a problem that you can identify. So there's nothing that requires that kind of urgency. When you see that there's a discrepancy there between the response and the actual conditions. So it's a great opportunity just to explore that. And the way I explore it is to let go of that tension, to let go, to soften that compulsion. Again, not to get rid of it, not to say that it's bad or wrong, but just because I'm awfully curious why this urgent sense that I must do something. Why this tension? Why this contracted, armored response when there's nothing going on that's a problem? And what I've found is that in doing that and in relaxing that, it becomes more apparent. I should say, sometimes in relaxing that, then there's just okayness, and that's really wonderful. Other times, in relaxing that, it becomes apparent that there is an emotion that's been unconsciously rejected. And the rejection is that tension. It is the indulgence of that compulsion. It's the self-protection when it's not needed. So again, it's not wrong, but it's just to be curious. Why is this happening? Why such a unnecessary response? An unnecessary response that seems to be exhausting, painful, unpleasant. So just take a look. And what I find is that oftentimes relaxing that reveals this emotion that I've been conditioned to reject. So then the challenge is, can I just continue to let go? Not because rejecting the emotion is wrong, not because it's actually a problem, but just again out of curiosity to discover what would it be like not to armor myself against this experience that's not actually a problem. It's just an emotion. That's all. So let's say the emotion is fear, and it's not particularly important to make a distinction and give it a name. But just for the sake of having something to speak about, let's say that the emotion is fear. And so fear is useful when it's appropriate. It's a signal that maybe there's danger, so we can take a look and respond appropriately if needed. But we've all had the experience of having fear when there is no real danger, right? So when we were children, we were in bed in the dark and we were terrified of the monster in the closet. So there was no actual monster in the closet. There was no real danger, but we experienced this fear. The fear is real, but if we live our lives like that, so every time there's fear, we reject it, and we just work really hard to get rid of it at all costs, then we're not actually taking a look to see, is there a real problem here? And in doing that, we just tend to, it's like pulling the blankets over your head. Pulling the blankets over your head gives you this temporary fix, a temporary sense of I'm safer. But then you continue to remain terrified of the monster in the closet instead of taking a look. So is not that any of these self-protective mechanisms are wrong. Like I've said, they can be useful, but when we're experiencing this boredom of any kind, particularly if it's chronic and it seems to be, and that seems to be a problem, then I think it's useful just to take a look. What's really going on here? Is there really a monster in the closet? Because by indulging the boredom or the compulsion to avoid the boredom, what we're doing is we're just pulling more blankets over our heads. And pretty soon we're suffocating because we've pulled so many blankets over our heads, because we just have to keep piling more blankets on to feel any sense of safety. But this is because we aren't taking a look at what's really going on. So there's fear, anger, sadness, even sometimes happiness has been rejected. And if we are conditioned to reject those, then we naively and innocently believe that to just continue to try to avoid, to reject, to try to distance ourselves from that is somehow going to yield the resolution that we want. But clearly it won't. So that's when we have this realization that it's not working. It's not that boredom is a problem. It's not that distractions are a problem. TV is not a problem. Alcohol is not a problem. Going out with friends isn't a problem. None of these things are a problem in and of themselves. But it's just not working, right? This continued attempt to avoid my own experience is just not working. When we have that realization, then it's just worthwhile to take a look. What's really going on? What have I been doing? I haven't been aware of it. Now I can be aware of it. What have I been doing? I've been pulling the blankets over my head. No wonder I'm having trouble breathing. But when I take some of the blankets off, oh, isn't that interesting? I feel scared. I feel vulnerable. I feel very uncomfortable. So for most of my life, I've tried to avoid that. But now I see that trying to avoid that doesn't work. So just out of curiosity, and just because it's the only choice that I haven't fully explored up to now, I'm gonna continue to explore this. It's just like if I want to know that there's no monster in the closet, or if there is, any which way, if I just want to know, I have to be willing to take the blankets off my head, turn on the light, and go over there and look. And so it's the same here. In my experience, that if I'm finding that my life is being driven by boredom and the attempt to appease the boredom, then I just need to take a look. So I hope this has been helpful to you. As always, if you're watching this on Facebook, then please like my page. If you're watching this on YouTube, then please subscribe to my channel. Of course, you can share these videos with people who you think might enjoy them or benefit from them. And in any case, please visit my website, joeylott.com. That's JOEYLOTT.com. And sign up for the free offer that I have available there. As I'm recording this, it is the free introductory e-course to what I call radical self-acceptance. Thank you, and I'll see you next time I do a video.